Hi everybody, I'm Tony E at Show IP Interface Brief, and today is day 34 of the 100 Days of Labbing Journey. And today I just did a little bit of labbing for a couple of hours. It's now just past 12:15 a.m. And I'm wrapping the night up. So tonight I went over some DMVPN. Again, I really love DMVPN. I like configuring it, and I'm just trying to get most efficient at it. I mean, I definitely understand all of the configurable elements by now. Let me say that with a caveat. I don't think you ever 100% know all of the configurable elements, but I am very comfortable with most of the basic configurable elements, as well as some of the ones that I've come across in the INE Foundation Lab so far. So I'm pretty comfortable with that. One of the things I always continue to work on in DMVPN is implementing OSPF over DMVPN, because there are so many, I was going to say knobs to turn, but they're not necessarily knobs to turn. They're just architectural differences between how you configure some things in OSPF and how the routes react and stuff like that. For example, I had a let me see if I can pull my lab over real quick. Again, I'm going to try and keep these brief. I'm not going to try and use them as these vlogs as opportunities to teach. We'll save that for another time. But I do want to be able to start sharing a little bit more if I can. So over here, this topology is a topology of my own creation. I call it the 6-shooter because there's 6 routers in it. And you can get this from the Dropbox in the description below. It's always been in there in case anyone has ever wanted it. I have it built for IOL and the VIOS images. So, let me know what you want. I'll put it out there. Anyhow, I use this topology for just about everything. So anytime that I'm building a custom lab, or I'm doing my own labs, or my own topologies or anything like that, anything that just I want to work on, I use this topology. I use this topology. It is so flexible because the physical connections don't even matter. It's all about how you logically connect it. And it's great. So let me see if I can, let's see if I can give you an example here. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and I'll make this my hub router, router 1. This will be a spoke, and this will be a spoke. So even though you don't actually see them as a router connected to a cloud with another router on the edge like that, I can make them look logically like this, even though they're physically connected like that. And we do that by doing trunking across these links. We can even go ahead and do an ether channel here. I mean, it's just the possibilities and the combination of configurable elements in a standard topology is just really awesome. I mean, if you look at the INE workbook, they have, I don't know how many labs they have, 500 or something. I don't know. It's ridiculous. There's so many labs in there. They're using one topology, one physical topology for that. And that's what this is. This is one physical topology, but I can change it up logically into so many different things. So anytime you ever see me make a topology that has 6 routers or less, I'm using this topology. And so this is what I do tonight. So I bring that up because one of the guys over at Discord was talking about how sort of getting the motivation up to start the studying journey can be hard, because you have to think about all of the topologies you want to build, and it's just something that you just have to sit down and do. And I did that for a while. When I started this journey, guys, I really did start off making a brand new topology for everything, and it was time consuming, and it was just for a matter of necessity that I started labbing every day for this 100 days of labbing journey, and just said, you know what, I need a standard topology that I don't have to build every time. I just fire it up and go. And if, depending on how you want to study, you might even want to configure IP addresses on them, on the routers. I don't, because I want the flexibility of logically changing the paths through the physical topology. But it's up to you. Anyhow, so I did a DMVPN tonight with OSPF. I'm trying to think what the heck. Now my brain is gone blank because it's so late. What the heck was I working on? DMVPN and something. DMVPN and OSPF. Oh, OSPF prefix filtering. So one of the things was, in fact, let me get back up here to a screen sketch. I'll go whiteboard style. Yeah, clear that off. Put me down here. So what I had was I had R1 connected as a DMVPN to R2. R1 was the hub. R2 and 3 were spokes. And I had a loop back in here, a loop back in here, and a loop back in here. I guess you can't see that one. A loop back in here. And all of the tunnel interfaces were in area 0. And then I went ahead and put this guy in area number 2 and in area number 3. And I put this loop back also in area number 0. So this was just, this was not anything super challenging. This was not like a brain buster or anything. But what I wanted to do was just, practice. This is all about practice. It's about just introducing new problems and seeing how you can react. And what I wanted to do was I wanted to inject a default route from router 1, so a quad 0, to both of my spokes. And I wanted the spokes to only see a default route. And I found that actually really challenging, right? Because, the rule of OSPF is all of the routers within the same area need to share the same database for that area. And so that's a challenge because router 2, maybe I should use a different color. Router 2, router 1, and router 3 all have interfaces in area 0, so they all do need to share the same database, which means we can't filter out router 2. We can't filter out, let's say, for example, this loopback and only seeing the default route in router 2 and router 3. So I had to sort of change scope a little bit and instead do filtering at router 3 and router 2 via a distribute list. And what that does is that actually filters out the routes from going into the routing table. It doesn't filter them from being in the OSPF database. So that's okay. That is sort of acceptable. That met the requirements that I set for myself. That's not how I wanted to do it, though. So I'm kind of looking at this as if you're sort of a service provider, not a service provider like a backbone service provider, but let's say you're a managed service provider, and you have 2 clients, router 2 and router 3, and you only want to give them a default route. You don't want to give them all of the other shared routes within area 0. And I thought maybe I would be able to do that from router 1. I think sadly I cannot because they all need to share the same database. So I have to actually do it at the client side. What I'm calling the client side, sort of in this fictitious topology I'm drawing for myself, and I just don't like that. So I don't know. I'm going to keep searching for a better method, but that's not for tonight. That'll be for a different day. Because when I went into the OSPF database on router 2 and router 3, it shows all of the prefixes you would see throughout the topology within that database, or within that area, rather. So I'm just thinking as a scaling issue, what if you had 1,000 routers, in an area? I know it kind of goes against Cisco recommendation, but what if you had 1,000 routers in an area? And you only wanted to see the default route? That means you still have to run shortest path. I think you have to run shortest path. I don't know. Maybe that's only when a prefix gets entered into the routing table. That's a resource question now. Now I'm sort of questioning that. Do you still run shortest path on the prefixes in the database even though you don't actually install them in the routing table. I guess you would not. I would hope you wouldn't, because that would be a waste of resources, but I've seen crazier things. But it just means that you have to maintain a large database if you had 1,000 routers or prefixes in there, even though you only want a single default route to show up in the routing table. So just a little thing that I was kind of toying with and just kind of looking under the hood and reading a little bit. So that's what I did for tonight, for a little bit, and I didn't build out the rest of my lab, so I didn't do much with the other routers that are part of the 6 router topology that I use. I had plans for it. I just didn't get to it. I'm tired. It's 12:30 and I have to work tomorrow. So I'll be back tomorrow and we'll hammer out some more stuff. A friend of mine asked me that he wished I went over some DMVPN with OSPF and kind of go over the different phases and different configurations and stuff like that. And I think that's very valid, and I really want to be able to push those videos out. But I sort of made a promise to myself that I'm going to be focusing on studying and not pushing out content. I really do enjoy pushing out content and making things and videos and stuff, but it really detracts from what I'm trying to do. It really takes away from the time that I have to spend, because I have a limited time. There's only so many hours in the day, and I have a lot of other things to do, as well as my energy. I mean, I definitely don't mind staying up all night to bang out these labs and videos and everything else, but I have to keep my eye on the prize. So that prize is those CCIE numbers. I just want to get it over with, then I can go back and make a couple of video tutorials and stuff, things that we've learned along the way. So anyhow, thank you all for labbing with me. This has been a pretty good journey. Oh, I do want to share a couple other things. So I'm not done here, actually. I wanted to share my EVE-NG in the cloud, which is running my 24 device topology. This is me getting geared up for the INE troubleshooting lab that I'm hoping to do this weekend, which is going to be August 26th, probably. So I don't know how many tickets. It's this topology. This is not a fundamental lab where you're doing configurations throughout. Instead, it's a ticket. You get a ticket with a brief description, maybe a small portion of the network, and maybe some show output, and you have to solve a problem. And then you go to the next ticket. I don't know how many tickets there are. We'll figure that out when we get to it. But anyhow, I just kind of wanted to get it loaded in my EVE-NG in the cloud to see how my resources are going to fare. And I'm a little surprised. So if I click on status, which kind of shows the CPU utilization, memory, well, you can read everything here on the screen. I'm running 20 nodes, and that's because I believe the troubleshooting lab doesn't have any switching in it, so I just left those nodes off. No reason to run them. I'm running at a consistent 95, 96% CPU. I'm going to say I feel very uncomfortable running at that level. I guess I don't feel so uncomfortable because it's not my resources, but if that was my server downstairs, I would be concerned. And I would tell you, I threw 8 vCPUs at this guy, which is over here, if I can bring it up on my Google Cloud platform. So I got 8 vCPUs and 8 gigs of memory. So I went ahead and upped the vCPUs from what you guys might have seen in my tutorial video. I went ahead and just and I don't know, not maxed it out, but I gave myself 8 vCPUs. I think it's maxed out for the free account. If you want more than 8 vCPUs, you have to get out of the free tier, the $300 that they give you, and actually start paying for it right away, I think. I'm not going to make the jump for that. Instead, I'm thinking I'm going to try and work this topology as is. And see what happens. The VM is pretty responsive. I don't see anything being slow or lagging or anything. I can click around to the devices pretty openly. You know, they're fine. Again, I haven't been through the topology, so I don't know yet. I'm thinking that if I'm going to be running at this high utilization for many more labs, that it might be worth the effort. It might be worth the effort to convert them over to the IOL image format, which changes the interface names. And I didn't want to do that because I've been in environments before, lab environments and production, where you're taking configs from one device and converting them to another, and you try to do that find and replace, and this is something that I will never do ever again. But early on in my career, I did find and replace, and I did replace all, and went and copied it in, and I spent 6 hours troubleshooting that problem. And because of that nightmare in a production network, where we had a scheduled outage, a maintenance window, but because I wasted a lot of time troubleshooting something that I shouldn't have had to, I never do the find and replace like that, because you always end up replacing something that you shouldn't. Never do a blind find and replace all. Never, never, never. I tell any engineer that I ever see that, don't ever do the replace all. Instead, actually click each one of the replaces. And I don't care how long it takes you, but make sure you see each one that it's changing, because what you'll see is it'll pop down to a config and change something that you didn't intend for it to change. And that's what I'm worried about converting these labs over to the IOL images. Is I would have to be a manual conversion process, or scripted, and I'm worried about the scripting because then I don't see everything that's being changed. And if something gets missed or changed incorrectly, then I waste time actually troubleshooting a lab when I should be doing configuration. So I don't know. We'll just kind of see how this goes. That's going to be my plan B. So I don't know if anybody else is running this topology out there, the 24 device topology, as I'm preparing for the troubleshoot labs. But if you are, let me know how your resources are, or what images you guys are using out there for it. This is the iOS V images, and they're running pretty high on, they're consuming a lot of resources. I just clicked over, it's 92% again. So I'm consuming a lot of resources. I'm not happy about it. But again, I got Google's $300, so I'll burn through that before we figure out what's our plan B. That's where I'm at, guys. Thank you very much. It's been awesome. I'm going to update my hours spent today, so I got about 2 hours, maybe 2.5 hours in, and that's where we're at. Hopefully we get another 2 hours, 2.5 hours tomorrow, and I'm really looking forward to getting back in the groove of labbing. So I was very successful labbing. If anyone saw my video yesterday, I had talked about on Monday, I think, or maybe it was yesterday, just sort of feeling defeated and sort of feeling a little depressed, and we're all human. And you can't be perfect every day, but I'm happy that I took the time to sit down and work through some labs today, even though just a simple lab, because it was successful, and it makes you feel good. It makes you feel accomplished, and that you're on the right track. So thank you all for joining me on the journey, and I hope to be and I'm joining you guys on your journeys as well. So thank you very much. And we'll be back tomorrow. More labs, more insight. Hopefully we'll get into some really cool stuff. And again, if anyone has lab suggestions or topologies, send them over. I've been stocking away some good topologies so that we never run out of stuff to do. And I wish I could be more interactive with the stuff that we do, where we could find a way to sort of lab together. We're not quite there yet, but we'll get there. So cool. See ya.